right. Starting stream. Write once, read many. For chapters 7.9 and 7.10. And just getting the link out there. Okay. Oh, Victoria's here. Or Vic. Hello, Vic. So, I'll start the speed draw. Alright. So, we've got two ominous figures walking down an alley. You know, looking, menacing, some would say. Many would say. Not I, though. And then, alright, so, yeah, as a reminder of the audience, looking Nazi-ish, that's right. That's right, Vic. The audience participation question this week is just the same as a lot of the fights. Who's the MVP of this bigger fight? Then for the themes, kind of a continued theme of escalation of violence. Like, this is like the largest scale fight we've seen so far in the book, and it involves 15 capes on one side. The other has minimum like 3, 6, 9, because Panacea's there, of New Wave, plus we see 3 of the wards, and I have to assume more are there. Greg says, hey, I'll be a bit in and out, but I'll be around. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's a crazy escalation from previous stuff, how many people are here. And apparently, I don't really know too much about this, but apparently as far as writing things go, this is a fight that got like wholesale rewritten, which I don't think is the case with any other fights. I haven't heard of that on anything else, but this was like originally written when he was moving or something, and the first version of the fight was really, really hard to follow, and this is kind of a replacement chapter. Vic says, I've read this fight like 4 times and I never remember it right. Yeah, I had misremembered a couple details too, specifically about like how Rune had interacted, and I didn't remember that Night and Fog were facing off against Panacea, Vista, and Clockblocker. I forgot that Panacea was even here. Anyway. I'll start in on 7.9. The chapter starts right off after... Oh, and actually, I have the full resolved image of the drawing up now, and I think it's quite nice. There's a lighting effect that I saw being made partway through that was very interesting around the edges. It almost looked like there was a mini fog cloud already, and then fog is a much more dense cloud, but anyway. So yes, the chapter starts off right after Gru gets his stitches done, which they were starting at the end of 7.8. He puts on his leather jacket with no undershirt. Worm spends a lot of time on like little sensations and uncomfortable feelings that characters have, and it made me think of stuff like Maiden Abyss, which puts an even heavier focus on the like disgusting nature of going on a fantasy adventure. Oh, and Vale is back. Only really gone for a couple minutes. You missed the speed drop, but you get to see the full form. Quite a nice alleyway there. Skitter's asking if Gru is going to be alright. I'll be fine. Let's end this ASAP. Bitch. The dogs. And she's ready. Bitch is already got the dogs in line, and riding the dogs is really strenuous. So Skitter's thinking about how she still needs a rest between like this and the gallery attack in Arc 6. Um, and with this in mind, it seems like riding the dogs with fresh stitches maybe is not the best idea. Vale says 7.9, 7.10, the Undersiders get their butts kicked. Yeah, I think this is the worst they've lost so far. Um, I mean, they semi-lost to Bakuda, but mostly won. Other than that, they've pretty much always won, even if injured. And this one, they pretty heavily just lose. Vic says, yeah, he probably should have just bailed out of the fight. Yeah, I think he should have, like, stayed hidden in that, like, church or whatever. He could just, like, go into a corner and, like, shade himself. Vic says, oh, 2 plus 4 times 5 says, I'm here, but only for, like, 5 minutes because I'm driving to work. Said, these things happen. Vic says, Gru never knows when to quit, which is very true. Gru does never know when to quit, and it gets him into some problems. It's the reason that he is the Undersider who ends up getting hurt more than Skitter. I mean, Skitter gets some pretty grievous injuries too, though. Let's not be coy with that. When Gru climbs onto Judas, he's visibly hunching over in pain. So Skitter tries to ask again if he's going to be able to do this, and he's already masking his frustrated emotions with his darkness, giving his voice the hollow quality. Just drop it. I can't do a hollow quality to my voice, but just imagine if I could. Skitter feels very self-conscious. Whether or not he meant to echo what she had said, it made her focus on the rift between them, since she kissed him and then got rejected. Broken hearts in the chat, I'm sure. Regent and Bitch climb atop Brutus. Skitter looks at her options. She thinks that riding with Gru would be too awkward and chooses Angelica. Tattletale's still texting and getting info from Coil. Gru reminds her that they're in a hurry, and she joins him on Judas. Coil said, to be careful. Vic says, nice going, Taylor. Ruined her friendship. Even though nominally no one is in charge, Gru's giving orders. Since he's kinda a leader, he signals Bitch, and Bitch signals the dogs. Angelica's following the pack so Skitter doesn't have to drive. Just hang on. It's a rough ride, but doing this a lot is part of why Skitter is so swole later. I mean, they kind of all are later. I bet even Regent, like, with his lack of working out, like, this is the workout. Tattletale leads them to where Purity's flying around. If it takes them a few minutes and they need Tattletale's power to help, I have to assume that they were spending time avoiding police barricades and staying out of the open so that they didn't totally give away their position before they got a chance to move in. When they start to get closer to the fight, the first thing that they see of the battle is Purity flying around the air, fighting 3 New Wave capes. Lady Photon, Laser Dream, and Skitter's old friend from the bank, Glory Girl. They're flying about. All of them, 3 of them are shooting lasers at each other, and Glory Girl is just like a combo human shield and flying brick that you don't want to get close to. She'll tear your head right off. The scene keeps unfolding as we see a sort of large-scale ground battle. Shielder is blocking some falling debris caused by Purity, like wildfiring shots without worrying too much about aim. Shielders with Flashbang and Brandish. They're fighting Krieg, Victor, Othala, and Alabaster. And then the next little group that they see a bit further away is Night and Fog near Panacea, Vista, and Clockblocker. A crazy fight if ever there was one. Those 3 versus those 2. Don't let Panacea touch you. Tattletale's using her power to guide them around the battlefield. The team is really coordinated and in sync for these riding maneuvers, but a lot of that is just the dogs being in like natural coordination. So they got that bit covered. Back behind the group, Manpower gets thrown through a brick wall and gets back up because he's that type of cape. This guy is huge. Wildbow says he's 7 feet tall, so he must be at least 6'4". Vic is saying, yeah, what the fuck is Amy doing there? I guess Fog probably can't do much to her, depending on how his power works. I think that Fog would probably be able to kill her, and I don't know that in his transformed state that she could do anything to him. But, and I was thinking about this, and I even have a little thing I wrote in the Powers, Knowledge, and World Building, so I'll just jump to that. I hadn't thought about it before this read-through, but Clock Blocker is kind of like a hard defensive counter to Fog. Fog can't hurt him at all, and he can like lock down Fog if Fog ever makes the mistake of getting close. I thought Manpower was tall while powered up, I guess. Maybe, but his power is like an electromagnetic field. I don't think it changes his height. I think he's just like supposed to be like, I don't know, like Steve Nash. Like a tall dude who, yeah, oh my god, the heights, yeah. Anyway, so let's see here. Where was I? I was right here. The Undersiders want to get Purity's attention, so Gru has them go upward. The dogs get into an alley and wall jump back and forth like it's a veritable Mario 64 of property damage. Skitter thinks to herself that this is worse than when they went over the rooftops of the Forsberg Gallery. We reach the rooftop just in time to nearly be squashed by a huge chunk of building that dropped from the sky like a meteor. She's gonna squash them? Like bugs? Vic says, listen, maybe it's Taylor that sucks at heights. Yeah, she can't tell how tall anybody is. Even though she has the bug measuring power. Skitter notices the other flying capes at this point. Aegis is slowly buzzing around the side, on the good guy's side, but Crusader and Rune are also there. There are a bunch of Crusader ghosts and Rune debris chunks flying around. Rune has powerful telekinesis, but needs to touch the object she's moving. She picked up what I have to assume are chunks of buildings and streets that Purity destroyed, so Rune is kind of like in her element here. One of these big rampages, she's so much more effective than in a regular fight. Those two are trying to set up plays for Purity to hurt and distract the heroes so that Purity can fire spiral beams at them. And then Regent, having an amazing power that is consistently underestimated, makes Rune fall the fuck over. Then she's hanging off the side of the debris she was riding on by one hand. And the only reason she wasn't a splat on the pavement is because Regent chooses not to kill her. Better make sure you can land somewhere safe. I'm dropping you in 3 seconds. Rune drifts herself down toward a building, and then when she's over it, but still really high up, Regent makes her drop. Fuckers! I'll squash you! Again with the squashing, as though Skitter was some sort of bug. Yeah, 2 plus 4 times 5 says bug measuring power. This person is 38 cockroaches tall. Vic says, I like Taylor reminding him not to kill after learning that he's a murderer. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think he would have not done it anyway, but probably a good call on her part. Rune starts dropping stuff out of the sky at them. Just because she's hurt and maybe can't even stand up doesn't mean she can't use her power to keep fighting. Crusader gets distracted having to hold the line against the heroes because Rune's not up there fighting with him. And so he can't come after the Undersiders. This is where Skitter calls Rune Sabrina the Teenage Nazi in her head, and then thinks to herself that she's bad at banter, but that's one of her best lines. But I guess everybody's their own worst critic. Oh, 2 plus 4 times 5 is at work now, and we'll watch the rest of the stream later. Bye! See you next week. They're leaping and dodging, but Rune surprises them for a moment by dropping a piece of debris, then suddenly sending it back upwards and into the building they were about to land on. It destroys the roof that they were gonna, get their footing on. So Brutus jumps over and onward. Judas rides a detached piece of rooftop until he can do a big jump to get to an alleyway and wall jump downways. And then Angelica wants to follow Judas, but Skitter convinces her to jump to the floating debris, and Angelica's kind of hanging like front paws up, back legs dangling off of this debris as it floats downward. Because the added weight of the bulked up dog is too heavy for Rune to keep carrying it. But she doesn't have the presence of mind to just immediately drop them, so it drifts down a little bit. Angelica gets her footing, and then they're low enough to jump down and do some more downways wall jumps. After they land, Skitter dismounts, unceremoniously falling to the ground, not really having any recourse. It was a hard ride, and her hands and legs aren't doing great. She's like starting to lock up from like just how rough, dog riding. It throws you around and crap. It's terrible. You okay? Tattletale called out. Yeah, you guys? So like even after like detailing in her own mind all this pain she's in, she's like, I'm totally fine. And then Gru says not so hot. But you can tell from their general shrug-offingness of injuries in the heat of battle that the fact that he mentions it means it must be pretty bad. Gru has darkness but is partially uncovered to look at his wounds. He's bleeding real bad from the hard ride, reopening his previously stitched injuries. Fuck! I knew you weren't good to go! I struggled to my feet and rushed to his side. You pulled your stitches already! Other things to worry about, Regent called out. Incoming! And then, at this point, Night and Fog are walking toward them, as seen here in the art. We've reached the moment. Retreat, Tattletale spoke. Just don't turn your backs to them. Fog started turning into a gas cloud and keeps moving toward them. Angelica's slow to respond to them running away and gets some fog in her, gets into the cloud, and it hurts her really bad, and she does like a crazy yelp and stuff that Taylor ain't never heard before. And I'm not sure of the exact nature of Fog's power, like down to the details, but there's some element of like neurotoxin and or the fact that he can like solidify parts of the gas to make it like almost immediately lethal if you breathe it in. I think the only reason Angelica survives at all is that she was a giant, like, monster at the time that it happened. Vic says, I hate Tattletale's explanation right here. Tell me why she gives this long-ass explanation when it's not even accurate. I think what she's doing is, even though it's not accurate, and it is, like, kind of a weird explanation, she doesn't understand the, like, Night mentality, because Night and Fog did not get their powers through traditional means. They got it through, alternate means, let's say. And so given that, they don't, like, their mindsets don't line up with their powers the way that Tattletale expects them to. And because they're these weird blank slate people, she has to, like, make up a story in her mind for how the power connects. And so she does this and gets Taylor into the right mindset. Because I think Taylor and, Skitter Skitter. I think Skitter and Tattletale both have this sort of intrinsic understanding of other capes, and like the their they're able to wrap their heads around the powers based on the like understanding the person, and so that's why they are always trying to like suss out somebody's personality mid fight, um, so that they can like put all the pieces together. She should probably just say she changes when no one is looking at her. Yes, absolutely. Tattletale loves the dramatic. But I do think there's just the slightest element of like maybe there's some little aspect of this because like when Taylor Super defeated Bakuda, it wasn't like learning that her power was bombs. It was learning about her mentality, and I don't know. There's something to that. I think maybe not, but regardless, Tattletale's a big ham here. Um, Rachel's about to jump in and fight, regardless of how ineffective a person would be against a cloud. But then, since they were all distracted and no one was looking at Knight, she had attacked Brutus, who knocks over the whole group. Skitter gets up. There are punctuations of how bad her body is doing between a lot of the action beats. I hurried to my feet, my legs and knees aching, putting one hand on Brutus's shoulder to steady myself. And then she sees what happened to Brutus. A dozen gouges crisscrossed his side, each wider than my handspan. One of the gouges even had shattered some of the protective bone plating. Brutus exhaled slowly, shuddering. If she can do that kind of damage to the dog that fast, it would be over for any Undersider if she got to them. Skitter sets her bugs on Knight, but Fog intercepts them, and they're crushed in midair when they move through his cloud body. Knight is suddenly on the other side of the alley, and for a moment Skitter thinks that she teleported or cloned herself, but then realizes that since Fog blocked sight of her, her silhouette also ended up disappearing when she looks back. She was just so fast that she ran around the building in that short time span. So Skitter questions Tattletale about this power in a pretty frantic way, and Tattletale makes up a story that isn't actually true, but helps Skitter conceptualize how to fight Knight. They keep constant eyes on her, or she'll become her changer form that is like a super fast, super strong, flailing, pointy limb monster. You know, your typical flailing, pointy limb monster. Skitter swarms Knight again now that she doesn't have a dumb cloud in the way, and Knight takes out a flashbang. Tattletale and Skitter are trying to get Gru to cover it in darkness, but in this inopportune moment, he falls unconscious from blood loss. The chapter ends with Tattletale desperately trying to get Gru to endarken the flashbang to no avail. Knight pulled the pin from the flashbang and threw it high into the air above us. And then the chapter cuts there. There have been some cliffhangers, but there aren't like as many cliffhangers as I feel like people like think there are. This is pretty cliffhangery though. The cliff, we are as Rune to it. We will be thrown by Regent off. And for any final chapter thoughts, I know it's like a rewrite of a fight, but I actually think that this chapter is like really good. Somehow it doesn't super stick in my mind most of the time when I think back through the book, but like I don't know, when I was just closely examining it to write this script, I thought that like these two chapters do a lot of really good stuff. Like weaving together all the little like pains and things that all the characters have as they go through this, and like showing them lose a fight, showing like what it's like when capes are going all out against each other, between the initial fight before the Undersiders get there with the heroes versus all of the Empire 88 people. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and I like it, but in some ways it is forgettable. Oh, and it has one of the greatest lines, the Sabrina the Teenage Nazi. That's a classic. On to, well, I'm gonna take a momentary break to finish the coffee I have, and then on to 7.10. So while I drink this coffee, we will see the next speed draw. Okay. Hopefully the fact that I turned around and was facing the other way will have blocked some of the mouth sounds, but this mic does pick up a lot of noise, so there's always a chance that I still had mouth sounds. Sorry, people. Um, and yeah, this is now the mukbang worm stream. But probably wasn't that bad. And Vic is unsure about this art, but I I think it's neat. I don't know. It's it's night in the impressionistic way that Taylor is able to conceptualize her through the bug swarm as it flails around. I think this body description is pretty interesting. There are a lot of other. Oh, and this is pretty grainy at the end of the vid. Let's look at the fully resolved. Yeah, I like this weird thing. It's freakish, and that's what I wanted it to look like. Because you can sort of connect the dots in your mind to what it might look like, but like you're filling in a lot. You're filling in more blanks than not blanks. And Vic says she's slimy. It's true. Her body's all slimy, and that's why none of the bugs can get on there and like stick to her. She also moves fucking fast as shit, but I think Knight's power is a pretty compelling one when people are like, what power would you want? Like, especially if it's a voluntary transformation and it's not just whenever you're not being perceived, but it's like you can be a human, but you can transform. Because you don't. Like, just the fact that you can full heal yourself whenever you're not seen by other people, like, that is so real life useful to just full heal. Um, Vic says, I hope it's voluntary, LMFAO. One of the reasons I think it's voluntary is because we see in a weird interlude later that she cooks breakfast for people, and there's no one in the kitchen with her, so she's not accidentally sending the fry pan through the wall or anything. Um, yeah. Well, um, anyway, so moving along from images of big limb beast cooking bacon on a frying pan. Cooking is easier when you have lots of arms. True, true. You could probably cook way more than the normal amounts too. Um, as you would expect from 7.10, it starts the very next moment from that cliffest of hangers in 7.9. Knowing that Knight will get to change if she turns away or if she's blinded by the flashbang, Scooter chooses the smarter option and crouches, hands over ears and eyes shut. The flashbang goes off in the air right above them, and the blast from that close a distance, and the fact that it's like hitting them, bouncing off the ground, and going up because they're in, just road concrete or whatever. Then Scooter's brain it gets all rumbled, and her sense of balance is knocked out of her, and like she can't focus her eyes and several other things. It's just like it is very incapacitating, And then she says, "It was scarily like the concussion I'd endured." Oh, Greg says, the way it works in story is very compelling too, though. It's one of those powers that takes some work to really shine, which is cool. Uh, Sveta, best chef. Yeah. Sveta can cook like all kinds of things all over the kitchen. Um, and then let's see here. Night is already changed and moving. Skitter has a hard time figuring out what she's even shaped like. Night is all oily and moves super fast, so the bugs just keep running into pointy limbs. She gets 6 slashes off on Judas in about a second, and Skitter can feel the vibrations from the impact in the air. Judas stumbles into Skitter and one of the other Undersiders, and his weight is crushing Skitter, but he gets up and moves in the direction of Night. He gets right back into the fight, really. Um, and it doesn't seem like the dog seeing her undoes her changer form, but he's able to bite onto her and stop her from moving away or toward the Undersiders. She keeps hitting him, and it gives everybody a moment to recover, but he gets like really badly damaged. Um, Scooter starts to open her eyes and tries to look at Night as best she can, but it takes several seconds to be able to focus her vision at all. Judas is thrown into a wall and has more damaged area of face than undamaged area of face. Um, and Night is back in human shape, and she pulls her cloak up to try blocking out the bugs that Skitter is still sending at her. Um, I'll mention it a few more times, but Skitter never lets up on Night, like this whole time. She looks back and sees Angelica was left behind in the cloud, while Bitch and Tattletale are dragging Gru back as the cloud advances further on them. Gru isn't able to stand, but he's awake again, enough to use his power, and he starts trying to use his darkness to keep Fog away from them as he gets dragged back. Skitter thinks that his darkness might have blocked out Fog entirely if he wasn't so injured. The darkness seems to be dissipating as fast as he can send it out, though. Night starts to get distance or distracted by the bugs, and they're getting inside her clothes and under her mask. I'm sure Skitter isn't pulling any punches here either, because you know, uh, they're getting pretty desperate. She gets out her baton and starts moving toward Night to 1v1 her. Night pulls out another canister that Skitter thinks is a flashbang, and she calls to Regent. He makes her drop the flashbang, or, non-flashbang, that she just pulled out, and then it looks like he drops her on the ground as well, but she actually drops to the ground on purpose on her own, um, and then she pulls the pin on the thing. And Taylor thinks it's suicidal to have it in like that close to her face when it goes off. But surprise, it wasn't even a flashbang, it was a smoke grenade. So Night starts standing up, and the smoke starts filling the area. She's holding on to the smoke grenade. Skitter charges her, knocking the smoke grenade from her hand with the baton, and they start wrestling. And Skitter gets a really good hit in right on Knight's head with the baton. I got a sense from the feeling of the hit that she didn't wear any armor or protective wear beneath the cowl and mask. Getting the upper hand, Skitter shoulder slams Knight and grabs the smoke canister. Trying to get it down the alley, she loses sight of Knight, which is a mistake, and no one has eyes on her because of the ambient smoke. So Skitter thinks that she may have just made a terminal error. She doesn't get killed by the hit because she's not hit as hard as the dogs, but it still probably would have killed her if she wasn't wearing armor. She's sent flying, and she rolls down the alley, and then when she gets up, her armor is hanging partially off her back because it got cleaved through by Night. So, her soft little spine would have got hit if it weren't for that armor. Skitter thinks that she can't go full swarm pile like she wants to because she can't fully obscure Night. Keeping the bugs eating away at her, she makes another try with the baton. She was, oh wait, this is a quote. She was thrashing beneath her cloak, 6 or so paces away. The bugs were nipping and stinging flesh. Good. Night pulls a trick, though, and, she bends low and then throws her cloak, blocking the line of sight for Skitter. And then, I pulled out a few big quotes as we go here, but she tackled me, keeping the fabric between us, and my baton slipped from my grasp as her weight slammed into the trunk of my body. The cloth of her cloak caught on my right hand and face. An angular arm with too many joints seized my right leg. Another 2 latched onto my right arm and neck respectively. Her grip and proximity to me held the cloth in place and kept her obscured. I was hefted high into the air with a speed that dizzied me. She dropped me, making me grunt as I landed. Skitter's trying to get the cloak off of her, but it's covered in little hooks on the outside so that when Night throws it at people, like other capes, then it gets caught on their costumes. So she's kind of stuck, covered in hooks. Tattletale is trying to talk her way back into the fight and distract Night and Fog. Starts talking about how boring their civilian identities are. They're from Germany and they moved around in America, Boston, or they went Brockton Bay, then Boston, then Brockton Bay again. And she doesn't use these words, but they're kind of like little clockwork soldiers who walk around and follow like robotic scripts during their non-cape lives. Skitter finally gets free of the cloak and sees Fog has advanced on the other Undersiders quite a bit. Regent and Bitch have gotten Gru onto Brutus, and Brutus and Judas were still with them, but they've both sustained like massive damage. Judas has been blinded by like all the, when he was holding on to Night and she was slamming away at him. Vic says, yeah, it's weird that we never really learn what their deal is. KS. Not sure what KS stands for in this. I assume they're brainwashed from birth or something. What I think it is, this is like, I guess, talking about a future chapter, but I don't care. I'm pretty sure that the Gesellschaft, or however you pronounce it, the like, German white supremacist organization who wants to destroy everybody and have Germany take over the world. Those people paid for powers for Night and Fog, and getting the powers, like, in the same way that there's always a chance getting the powers that way to, like, destroy the body or, like, change the body, their minds were kind of destroyed. Like, that's what I think happened, is that they're getting the powers, like, broke their brains, basically. Or they could have been brainwashed from birth or something, I guess, but I thought it was in relation to how they got the powers, which I guess is just an assumption. Skitter finally gets free of the cloak and read that part already. Now that Night isn't wearing her cloak, Skitter can see that she's covered in kit. Grenades, canisters, knives, something that looked like spray paint. Skitter continues to storm her, never letting up. Whenever she's in human form, Night is feeling the hurt. Tattletale continues to distract Night, but it's not super working because Night and Fog are pretty brain broken. Skitter can tell from the fact that her damage keeps resetting that Night full heals when she changes, making her a lot harder to deal with. Night looks over at Skitter and Tattletale gets desperate. "Hey," Tattletale spoke, "pay attention!" Night pulls out a knife and Skitter tries to get her knife to defend, but Night is up in her shit and the knife is near her neck already. "Damn you!" Tattletale shouted. I was only aware of Night's unwavering, unblinking gaze, the feel of her wrist in my grip, then the gunshots. Night didn't even scream. She dropped partway on top of me, falling onto her side, her weight on my legs. The villainess lay there, silently writhing, hands behind her back. Blood welled from the holes in her lower back and the space where her buttock met her thigh. I glanced at Tattletale, who had her gun raised, looking slightly surprised and disturbed by what she'd just had to do. So we've seen Tattletale fire the gun to get Glory Girl's shield down. But this is like the only time she's shot someone, and I think it's the first time that she shot someone. But you gotta start somewhere. And why not Night? Skitter doesn't even have time to feel relieved because Purity arrives. She blinds them all just by being there and wells up energy to blast the Undersiders. Vic says, Tattletale is a great shot. Power probably helps. Agreed. The other thing that probably helps is that her target was like mostly hunched over with her back to Tattletale, like not doing anything to dodge. So unmoving target is pretty useful when you're shooting. But Purity arrives and blinds them all just by being there. Skitter thinks about Purity's team comp. Purity and Fog both make Knight's power work really well, and then they have Alabaster and Crusader like go around distracting people. Alabaster hasn't really been in this fight, but he also has a power that just heals him over and over again, resetting him. So he's kind of like Aegis in a way that like he just like runs up to you and kind of fights you with slightly better than normal strength and is just like always there. And you know, his other powers, he's so white. But Crusader, yeah, I think is much more dangerous than Alabaster. Like he can gank you with his shitty force field spears. Greg also says so white. Let's see here. When Skitter can see again, Knight is back up like nothing happened. Full healed again. No blood, no gunshots. But Purity didn't blast the team yet. Skitter is seriously worried about Gru and thinks he looks a lot worse than a few minutes ago. She sees the damage to the brick wall and realizes that Regent made Purity miss. She didn't miss on purpose. Then Tattletale makes her big play. Purity! Caden! Not looking for a fight, Tattletale called out. She raised her hand, her gun dangling from one finger by the trigger guard. Purity raised her hand, and more light began glowing in her palm. Dale and Emerson, Tattletale added. Purity didn't lower her hand, but she didn't shoot either. What? Aster, Tattletale stood up. She's at Dale and Emerson, outskirts of town. The PRT has a safe house there for when a villain's after someone, or in case some member of the Protectorate or wards gets outed, and their family needs a spot to stay. Purity doesn't believe them at first, but Tattletale cuts in and says, We didn't tell the media that stuff. I'm even a little pissed about it. Not just about us getting blamed, but that they didn't just attack you, but your families. It's fucked up. The entire reason we came here was to set the record straight and get you your kid back. Purity starts to say something about Kaiser, and Tattletale jumps in and explains that Kaiser is getting more by using them against the Undersiders than the actual culprit of the info dump afterward. It's up to you. Who are you going to trust when Aster is on the line? Me or Kaiser? Not knowing that this is actually a winning strat, Skitter is shocked that this is Tattletale's argument. Skitter tries to set up for a sneak attack on Purity, and then Crusader, who's arrived without her noticing, pokes her lightly with the spear point at her collarbone. Purity lowers her lasering hand, and then she says that she's taking Tattletale with her. Tattletale says this is fine, but she needs to let the others go and stop rampaging. At first, Purity is concerned that this is a trick for Tattletale to sacrifice herself and save the others. Then we get this line. Because whatever else you might be, Caden, you somehow, in some warped perspective, see yourself as an upstanding person. And if I wasn't an honest person when it counted, I wouldn't trust you to hold to that. Make sense? Skitter doesn't get it, but Purity stares at Tattletale, then decides to trust her on this. Purity grabs Tattletale by the wrist and tells her team to let the others go, then scoops up Tattletale and flies away with her. LMFAO, I don't get it either, Taylor, says Vic. I think I get it. I can't explain it, but I think I get it. I have that mid-level of understanding where you can't teach the class, but you can do the assigned problems. In that same momentary glare that had carried our teammate away our teammate and Purity away, Night had moved into the midst of our team. She had a knife held with the blade pointed out to the bottom of her fist, pressed to Regent's throat. I get it, Regent replied with disinterested tone. You could kill us right here. May we go? Night sheathed the knife and walked through the group to Fogg, who was gathering himself up in a human shape again, turning away to exit the alley. Crusader on the opposite side of us was rising back up to the sky. Skitter is relieved for a moment, then sees Gru and Angelica. She gets her cell phone out and calls Coil to get them in contact with the Cape Doctor. She tells Coil that they can't get to where they met him before because Gru and the dogs are so injured. He says he'll arrange it, and they should await a call from a driver. He hung up, not quite so friendly as the last time we talked. Regent, Skitter, and Bitch work on getting Gru onto Brutus and Angelica onto Judas. Skitter tends to Gru's wounds and makes sure he's alive. He's talking in single-syllable sentences when responding to her. They're slightly mobile, but moving slower than Skitter's normal walking speed. She's super worried, but they don't run into any opposition from Empire 88 or the heroes, so that's a good thing. I believe the fight is ongoing because it's like they're still covering, making sure the heroes are busy while Purity flies away to get Aster. I mean, I don't remember if it's confirmed or not later, but I'm pretty sure that Purity murders all the PRT squad members who are at the safe house. Let's see here. They get the call, and Coil's ambulances are on the way. When they get there, Skitter joins Gru, feeling guilty about her possibly subpar medical treatment, while Coil's medic worked on Gru in silence. Skitter sends Tattletale an all-clear text. Frog A, got Coil's people to pick us up. Brian is getting help. Dogs are mostly okay. Text me back. And then they meet up with the cranky old doctor again, and his code name for them is Dr. Q. They're like, oh no, what's gonna happen to Brian? But he continues working, and he goes, the bug girl, he finally commented. Yeah, I'm really sorry about bringing those bugs to your place last time. I see they're gone now. They are, was his response. I feel like that's such a weird interaction. It's very odd, but she hasn't gotten a response from Tattletale yet. Minutes passed. And then when the doctor's finally done with helping Brian, then he takes off the gloves that are assumedly covered in blood, and he's like, you unhurt? And she's like, more or less. I got jabbed in the stomach. I have my aches and pains. Hurt my ear earlier, but I already got it taken care of. I'll verify that for myself. And then he checks her wounds, and then he, pokes at all her wounds from cricket, and then she removes her mask for the ear, and I guess she's showing him her face, but like the whole point of having a specific cape doctor is that they can do stuff like that, and like the cape doctor's entire rep rests on the idea that he never gives up, info on the people he's fixing up. So, um, you know, and oh, Vic says, I think he saw her last time. Yeah, that's probably true. I think he already saw her in civilian guise because they took off her mask and like hid the fact that they were capes when they were getting her there. Um, oh, and partway through her getting healed by him, Tattletale texts back, Avocado C. She got what she needed on my way. And so we get the relief that Tattletale is safe as the chapter end. And yeah, another chapter in the can. But it's as dire as their situation gets for has gotten, I think, up to this point, other than maybe when Bakuda had Taylor glued down to the floor. No other situations felt like on the edge of a total like defeat and death. Because like the Oni Lee situation, it felt tense, but it was never like, I don't know. They had it in hand. Let's see here. So, moving to the characters section, we got Brian. Yeah, Vale says they flat out lost this. They absolutely did. I agree. Yeah, we got Brian, and Brian makes the mistake of coming on this trip, even though he probably shouldn't have. I can see why he thought it was necessary, because if they had to make a getaway, then without the darkness, there are so many flying capes on the opposing side and on the hero's side at this point, because New Wave is all there, that there's like, it'd be hard for them to get away in a lot of cases. So I can see why he did it, but he will continue to make this mistake. Very injured, but also very alive. And then we've got Lisa. We see her as desperate as she's ever been. She shoots somebody to help Taylor out. I think, like, for her, losing Taylor is worse than losing any of the other Undersiders, because she's really, like, attached herself to Taylor, and it's all about like protecting this little sister figure for her. Then we got Rachel. We see Angelica get hurt really bad, and we'll see later that she never recovers from getting hurt by fog. So it's like a whole thing, And we'll see Rachel, I think, Rachel reevaluates like how she is interacting with people, because she, undergoes this like loss and then like a lot more loss all in the next little while. So this is the start of a pretty bad turn for Rachel for the near future. Alec, bored, disinterested by almost dying in the almost dying situation. He's just like, whatever, get out of here. He rolls in this chapter. I think he really shows his stuff on that. But moving on, the last character I want to really focus on, like outside of the capeness of them, is the Caden character, who's like, I'll kill everyone until you show me where my daughter is. And it is funny to me that when Tattletale puts it in as stark of terms of, who do you trust more, Me, your enemy, or Kaiser, your boss? That the answer is Tattletale. And I mean, she's right too. She's right to trust Tattletale over Kaiser. It's the first good decision she's made all arc. Okay, so given that I'm starting the powers knowledge and world building section, I wanted to scoop out the Quinn's power predictions. Sorry, I'm having to layer different stuff. There we go. So I wanted to talk about Quinn's power predictions for some of the guys. We got to, yeah, you scoop out Lung's eyes. So we already got to see Hookwolf, Cricket, and Storm Tiger. His predictions, because I feel like I just want to highlight these one more time because they're so funny to me. Hookwolf turns into a wolf plus one additional human hand. Storm Tiger, he's built, has a lightning aspect, fights with martial arts. Short-lived mover breaker to become lightning in close combat for movement. And then Cricket, pow block with his voice. So, I still love his Hookwolf. Can't get over it. I can't get over it either. I keep bringing it up to him at work. I keep talking about it. Hookwolf turns into a wolf plus one additional hand. That's insane. That's so funny. I love it. It's just a normal wolf with a tiny hand jutting out of it. And we were laughing super hard thinking about him like wolf running along with like just a handgun firing. So I don't think we get to see Krieg at any point in this fight, although I think it's... Maybe we did. Let me see here. Krieg... Oh, there it is. Krieg is with Victor, Othala, and Alabaster fighting Shielder, Flashbang, and Brandish. I do not remember Krieg's power. I think he has a brute power or like a speedster power, but he basically just walks up and fights you. But going back to what Quinn thought, he said he is Guts Berserk. Much like being Sans Undertale, you can be Guts Berserk. And that is Krieg's power. And then we've got... who else do we see? We saw Night and Fog. I'll get to them in a second. But for Othala, who we didn't get to see their power, but Othala's power is that she can give people little boons, little... Like, you are invincible, or you are super fast, or you have super healing, for as long as she's kind of near them and can keep reapplying the power. But Quinn's version is she's a dark druid, makes dead trees grow, and spreads diseases. I like that version too. That's what a good one. Little boons, like being invincible. Yeah, well, Greg, I know that doesn't sound like a small thing, but like you're invincible. Like she usually works with Victor, so like he's invincible and he has regular human strength. It's not like if he was Galvanate, or if she was Galvanate, she could touch you and make you like an unstoppable metal soldier who can run up and fight for a long period of time. Or you can be invincible for like a few seconds until it wears off. Just little boons. And then, okay, so the next fools that we have here, they talked about Victor and Alabaster. So Victor's power is that he can steal skills and even like any learned thing. So like pain tolerance, like being able to move your body to a decent degree and like walk around. Like he can just steal your whatever. But Quinn's idea was that he spits out a fog cloud that makes people fall asleep. So, then we had Alabaster. And even Quinn decided he's so white. He said he uses a minigun. He's an over-the-top American. His body has heightened senses and super strength, big muscles, and surprisingly good aim with the minigun due to his cyborg eye. So I think that's better than what we actually got in the story. Next we've got Crusader, and instead of what we get in the story where he can project telekinetic versions of himself, she's got a thinker power to see through walls, can make herself glow to blind anyone looking at her. She has golden armor. So yeah, not quite right, but another good attempt. Then we've got Night and Fog, and of course we know Night and Fog's powers from talking about them all chapter, but Night. Knightish armor. He has a sword. Can shoot blood beams from the sword. Can manipulate blood. And then Fog. She moves like fog. Turns into a fog vapor in the right conditions. So, like, he actually literally got Fog right, aside from thinking that Fog was a lady. I mean, Fog's powers is exactly what you would think when you hear the name, but... So that's the end of Quinn's power predictions, and we shan't bring it up again. Oh, wait. I didn't review what he thought for Rune. She's an evil ice queen, can encase herself in ice as hard as diamond. Yeah. Yeah, pretty good power setups. I like his idea, especially Hookwolf. But, so moving on, we see all of New Wave here. Literally all of them are in this fight. And they're pretty much holding the line for the heroes. I have to assume that the Protectorate heroes were also out there, like, somewhere. But that just the way that the battle was unfolding, that's not where Taylor was. Because the wards were there, fighting, you know. We only see the big 3 wards anyway. That is one weakness of this fight. It really seems like we'd see the Protectorate capes. We'd probably see, what's his name? Dauntless arc lancing people out of the sky. Like it's nobody's fucking business. And yeah, we see Lady Photon. She shoots lasers. She got purple beams and force fields. Then her daughter Laser Dream. Laser Dream is similar powers, red lasers, and weaker red force fields, but her red lasers are stronger than her mom's purple lasers. And then Shielder, on the other end, is Lady Photon's son, Laser Dream's younger brother, who does blue force fields. I think he theoretically has a beam power, but I don't know if we ever see him use it, and it's supposed to be much weaker than the other two. But his shields are much stronger. And then we've got Manpower. He is those previous two's dad, and he is he's a big dude, and he's got electromagnetic fields around him that let him sort of cushion impacts, knock things out of his way. It's both offensive and defensive, and it's pretty like automatic. Like he can get thrown into a wall, and I don't think he has to think about the timing. I think it just busts down the wall and cushions him without him having to worry about it too much. Offloaded power kind of stuff. And it probably didn't at first, but he's been fighting for like minimum 15 years, so you know, he's got a little bit of time under his belt, and the powers really develop and make a lot of your like conscious powers into unconscious powers, like we see with Taylor. And this, you know, an ongoing thing we'll see throughout the story is more and more stuff happens automatically for Taylor's bugs. And she even like will become perturbed by it later, being like, I didn't even think for them to do that, and they did it. That's a little concerning. Moving on with the New Wave people, we've got Flashbang, who is Glory Girl's father. Flashbang can throw explosives that he creates in his hands They can either be like flashbangs, where they don't have real force, or they can be like real concussive explosions that destroy things. Um, or you know, they can be deadly or non-deadly at his choosing. Um, and Brandish, that's Glory Girl's mother. She can create. Oh, and Lady Photon and Brandish are sisters. Lady Photon leads the team, and Brandish is the like public civilian cape. Like they're all public identity capes where people know their real names, but she is the like financial lead of the team. She keeps the money flowing in from her actual job as a lawyer, and she keeps things in order as far as the books for the team go. Um, uh, she's just better at that stuff, you know. And Lady Photon's better at like making really good aerial maneuvers for all the flying capes. Um, then we've got oh yeah, and Brandish does like energy weapons, yeah, and they can be like an axe or a sword or whatever, but it's just like a hand-to-hand combat weapon that tears you to pieces with super hot energy. And then she has a power that they don't talk about here at all, because I mean they don't mention her powers whatsoever here, but she can go into a defensive state where she's like a breaker form that is uh like untouchable kind of thing. Like it's like completely inviolable. Um and we're not gonna see it for a while, but we do see Lady Photon and Brandish's trigger events in Brandish's chapter in a flashback. And Lady Photon triggers first, and but I would argue that the two of them are like a multi-trigger, so their powers kind of like bounced off each other, so they kind of like that's why they both have two powers pretty much, like a weapon and a defense. I think Lady Photon's power was just weapon at first, and then was defense after or maybe it was just like projected force fields first, and then she got the laser after Brandish triggered. I bet that's what it was. Yeah. Either way, lasers, laser weapons, defenses. Moving on to Glory Girl, who has the powers that we already know from previous stuff. She is got a super shield, and she's got emotion powers, and she's got a really fast flight power. Most people can't keep up with her, although I do think Purity is faster than her. But I'm pretty sure she's her fastest family member. And then Amy shows up. Panacea. I didn't even remember that she showed up until I reread the chapters for this week. It's crazy that she's here, but you know, sometimes you gotta heal people on the battlefield or whatever. Anyway. So then I have my note about Clock Blocker being a perfect defensive counter for Fog. I thought that was pretty interesting. This is the book's first like big fight. I think it's prepping us for future big fights. And we'll see a lot of different types. I pulled out a quote here about Knight's oily body. Another big quote. Knight was already moving. My bugs were my only sense that still worked, but they couldn't get a grip on the surface of her body. She moved too fast, and her skin was smooth and oily, slick with some sort of lubricant. The result was that I couldn't really make her out in the darkness. I only got flashes, the vaguest sense of how she was put together. I was reminded of the ink blots I'd seen during my brief stay in the mental ward. Every fraction of a second it was different sets of ink blots, a different shape, all edges and angles and sharp points, entirely up to interpretation. Yeah, as seen in Vic's interpretation. He snapped his hand out, and Knight's arm bent in a palsied, twisted angle. The grenade fell to the ground, and Knight fell on top of it. I just wanted to pull out this moment of Regent, like, coming in clutch, as always. There were no happy coincidences there. She must have calculated how their powers could collectively work together. Her light and Fog's mist could blind their foes, and Knight leveraging any opportunity gained. Alabaster and Crusader, probably intended as front line, to slow the enemy down, take out the problem targets and buy time for the core group to do what they needed, or to do what they were doing now, and occupy enemies elsewhere. Yeah, we get to see throughout the book Taylor become a master at both pre-planning and the moment-to-moment of cape fights, really understanding how to get powers to synergize and how to win a complicated fight given the capes and resources each side has. And that's kind of the end of my powers, knowledge, and world-building stuff. So I was going to get to the audience participation, which is who is the MVP of this bigger fight. And this is going to be one of our first chances at Gru not being the MVP because he is so hurt. Vale says, quick answer, Tattletale is the only reason they are not all dead. MVP for me. Frankly, I was going to say that Knight was the MVP of this fight. She kind of like Shreks the entire, like, she almost single-handedly defeats the Undersiders. And then, you know, with a little bit of assist from the other two teammates, she's got them dead to rights. So, despite being an opposing person on the bad side, I think my MVP is Knight. If I had to choose someone from the Undersiders, I think Regent was the MVP. No, I'm joking. I think he did really well with the rune thing and with stopping Purity shooting them and with stopping the smoke grenade for a second. But probably Taylor in this, or no, not Taylor. Tattletale for saving Taylor with the gun, and then, you know, for the talkie thing that they're not all dead. Vic is back to say Knight was MVP. All right, yeah. I don't know. Even though she's racist, yeah, it's true. I don't even know with Knight and Fog, like, if they are, like, if they just work for the white supremacists, or if they are, like, they don't seem to, like, have any personality. They seem to be like kind of pre-programmed robots. And she pulled the pin with her teeth. Yes. She did the throwing trick. She did a lot of good moves. Yeah. Agreed. I think it's one of the. She's one of the people where you're like, wow, you have really, like, thought this through and are maximizing your power. I feel that way with a lot of parahumans, but sometimes you'll see a cape and you're like, what are you fucking doing? But usually those people get chumped, so. And it's kind of like people with mid-tier powers where they're good enough that they can get away with not thinking stuff through, but they're like, you know, then they get murked before they really get a comeuppance that makes them realize that they have to think things out. But yeah, I think that's the end. I don't know that Greg's here to give an MVP answer, so that's kind of all out of the way. As for a question for next chapter, I was struggling, or for the next two chapters rather. I was struggling for how to exactly word it, but think back to your first read through. How big of a shift did your perception of Coil make when you read 7.11 and 7.12? Yeah, so how I'll do the audience participation question now. How big of a shift in your perception of coil did you have the first time you read 7.11 and 7.12? There we go. Cool. But I think I'm going to start the music and read the links as you do. The music used in this episode of The Start and End was Born in a Broken World from the documentary music playlist provided by CO.AG Music. Great source of free music. Our Discord server can be found at, the link can be found in the description of the stream as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org or on most podcast apps and on YouTube. Vale says, take care. Yes, take care, everybody, and Greg makes fun of Vic's typo. Goof moves, eh? Those are my favorite kinds of moves. Bye! Bye, Vic. Bye, Greg. Bye, Vale.